welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 259 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 33 of A Feast for Crows. That's Jaime 5.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. Unless you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers, then we will spoil things for you. But regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Molly was here, fall break. She was here
nice.
Friday morning until yesterday evening, so that was nice to have her home for a few days.
Well, I mean, that's nice to hear about, but I got stories.
Okay, well, that's what we're here for.
set aside family things, because
right.
we got stories. So, Carson and I went to get vaccines, flu and COVID vaccines.
All right.
There was a clinic at work,
yep.
and so we took advantage thereof. And you know me as well as anybody in the world knows me, Mackelly. I'm not great in medical situations. I'm not terrible, but I'm not great. I don't really like to be in medical situations. I don't like the dentist at all.
I know this.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't like jabs very much either.
Well,
do you understand the word jab?
Yeah. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. So we're in there, and I'm fine, but I'm just there are tells that I'm slightly stressed. I'm talking a bit more than I normally do, which is a lot already. But,
right.
You know, yeah. I'm kind of gabbling and sort of like talking to the nurse, and Carson eventually sort of explains he's just nervous, just ignore him, kind of thing. You know?
Right.
And Carson goes first, and she gets the first jab, and then she gets the second one. And as the second one goes in, she goes, "Ah! Oh God! Ah!
Oh no!"
She's just kidding.
Oh,
she's just kidding. Just trying to mess with me.
Did she not tell you until afterward that she was messing with you?
No. She couldn't keep it. She told it there and then. She said, "It didn't hurt. I was just pretending." It didn't do anything for my blood pressure or my enjoyment.
I bet it didn't.
No, I told this story to the family call. Because it was like this was last week, and Carson said, "You know what? I'm going to get myself a podcast called What Really Happened."
There you go. You got to listen to our episode first, and then her episode.
Exactly. She denies some of the elements of that story, but yeah. So,
well,
she's very funny. But so okay, so she got me there,
yeah.
But I kind of got her back because she said something kind of silly the other day that was very funny. So she and I were walking the dog after dark, so it had already gone dark. Now, you know me and my phone, Mackelly. We're never separated by more than
50 miles.
50 miles, yeah, that's usually my range. So we're walking the dogs, and we have a lead that has both dogs on it. It's like a Y-shaped lead, so you hold one lead, but you've got both dogs.
Yep.
And the dream came true. The dogs pooped at the same time.
Wow. Synchronized pooping.
I know. I said, "It's the dream." And Carson said, "Yes, it is. It's the dream." And we were kind of laughing, about this fact.
Yes.
And then I said, "Do you have your phone with you?" Because, of course, I didn't have my phone.
Right, yes. That was assumed. Yeah.
"Do you have your phone with you?" And she said, "No, because if I did, I'd be taking a photograph of that." But I meant to light the ground so I could find the poops.
I don't want you taking a picture of dog poop.
She wanted to capture it for posterity, the moment where our dogs pooped at the same time. Oh, I laughed at her quite a bit.
Yes.
I just meant to light the ground.
Now I'm stumbling about.
Exactly. The dogs actually had allowed me to use a different sense to find them.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
It was quite easy, actually. Good.
Hope it wasn't touch. So we did. Have you ever done Parade of Homes where you go and poke through.
I know it exists.
Yeah,
yes, there's people have fancy homes. They open their doors for
so what
people
happens
to walk through.
Is builders building home building companies build homes, and then they put them up for categories to win awards. And there's judges that go around and look at all these homes and award them various places depending on whatever thing that they are featuring that is special.
Right.
But it's also open to the public to just walk through these homes. And they have homes ranging from, smaller homes all the way up to multi-million-dollar huge mansions. And
typically are these unoccupied then?
They're all unoccupied, yes.
Okay, so you're not just walking through someone and they're
in their bathrobe,
eating popcorn, watching the TV. Yeah.
No, they're all I think, in some instances people buy them I think that's why it's open to the public. It's an open house. People can go in if they like it.
It's a big open house for lots of big houses.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
And little houses. But we decided there was one neighborhood about half hour north of us that had 9 homes in the same neighborhood. And so we thought, well, let's just go to one spot and we'll see as many of those as we feel like. So we decided to go big. And the cheapest house we looked at was $2 million.
Right,
the most expensive house was $3 million. We looked at 5 houses in the $2 to $3 million price range. And
very much in yours and my price range if we both take out a lot more life insurance and kill ourselves.
Right. Yeah, possibly then. And there were all the homes were very beautiful. I mean, obviously, no doubt about that. And there was a lot of really, fine features, like really upgraded features in the homes, but there were just some really weird things in there as well, such as
I can believe it.
One house we went into had a beautiful kitchen, just a state-of-the-art chef's kitchen, had like a $15,000 range in the kitchen, and then you go through this what looks like shelving, looks like cabinetry. You pull it open, and behind it is another room. You go into that room, there is almost an identical kitchen back there as well. And I could not figure out why you would need to... Okay, I get it. If you are really so fancy that you have like a chef that cooks your meals or something like that, or a live-in cook of some sort, or you host huge parties and you don't want the people cooking your food to be, seen, I guess. Those are the only most obscure things I could think of.
So you have a show kitchen and a real kitchen that's hidden from view.
Yes.
Wow. What? That is both ridiculous and also quite sinister as well.
Right. What are you cooking back there you don't want me to see? So that
is amazing.
That was the rest of the house was really nice. It was one of my favorite houses we looked at, but I couldn't get past the uselessness of a double kitchen. And there were a lot of kind of just like unnecessarily the things were neat, but just unnecessary. Like most of the houses had 3 washer and dryer setups. They had one by like where the kids' bedrooms would be, one like on the first floor, and one in the master closet bathroom type area.
Good grief, that's crazy.
I know. I just like
that's really crazy.
It seems over the top.
I met some people in Wilmington, North Carolina, this year, and I went to their house, and their house was a really old, big house, and it was cool to be in this house, but it had a secret door to a study. But that seemed really cool. That didn't seem like that's where you chain up your workers.
Yeah. Anyway, but it was fun.
All right.
It's always fun poking around in other people's houses, I guess.
Yeah.
See how the other half live. Not half.
Yeah.
The other sliver percentage live.
Yes, true. Well, anyway, let's get down to business. How did we leave Jaime Lannister? Last we saw of Jaime, he was dallying in Derry. His cousin Lancel was admitting to his affair with Cersei and was determined to annul his new marriage to Emmon Frey in favour of returning to King's Landing to dedicate his life to the faith. No wonder Kevan, Lancel's father, blew that popsicle stand. By the way, when I wrote that, I looked up the origin of the "let's blow this popsicle stand," and it's quite controversial.
Really?
It's hard to know exactly where that came from.
Okay.
Why don't we give the summary of this one?
Well, let's do it then. So, Jaime's heel dragging reaches its end, and he arrives at Riverrun. He meets first with his cousin Daven Lannister, and they discuss Jaime's hand, and Daven is annoyed when he learns that it was Vargo Hoat who took his hand. He'd offered to handle the tasks that the brave companions were given, but Tywin said foraging wasn't a job for lions. Daven expresses frustration with the Freys, who are taking the fun out of this whole siege. Even their uncle Emmon, Lord Emmon, is whining about the damage to his future castle.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
But Daven Lannister's contempt is mostly aimed at Sir Ryman Frey. Every day Sir Ryman puts a noose around Edmure Tully's neck and threatens to hang the former Lord of Riverrun for all to see. But Brynden Blackfish Tully has long since called Ryman's bluff, so now it's just a waste of everyone's time. Daven Lannister is not pleased. Daven also reveals that Roslyn Frey Tully is pregnant with Edmure's child, and she seems oddly fond of the man, which makes her almost unique in this book, since no one gives him the time of day.
Right. Daven's last gripe is with Lord Gawain Westerling, who reminds him constantly that his family are prisoners within Riverrun and need to be saved. They talk of Lancel and Derry. Lancel has made his plans known to the Derrys and Freys before Jaime departed. They were not amused. Jaime has pretty solid evidence that the Freys don't like people taking marriage to them lightly. Daven is also set to marry a Frey, so Jaime encouraged his cousin to follow through on that one. While he sympathizes with Daven, his biggest concern is the lack of Riverland houses helping with the siege. Clearly, the Riverlords who have bent the knee don't have their hearts behind that demonstration.
The next day, Jaime plans to parley with Brynden Tully. He recalls meeting him when Jaime was a young squire. He was sat beside Lysa Arryn at the time, but only had eyes for the fabled Blackfish. When Daven besmirches Lysa Arryn, Jaime defends her, saying that she was a pretty maid at the time, not the woman she became. Jaime is visited by his Aunt Genna and uncle Emmon Frey. True to Daven's prediction, Emmon whines about the damage to his castle, but Jaime points out that while he will be Lord of Riverrun, he'll still be a vassal of Harrenhal, and therefore Peter Littlefinger Baelish. Emmon is livid, but Jaime cannot do anything, so he'd better take it up with Cersei. Emmon leaves the Lannisters to catch up.
Genna is a Lannister of the Tywin, Kevan, Tyrion school, sharp and acerbic. She's bemused by the decision to rearm the faith militant, and she's flabbergasted by the smallest council and Cersei's decision to sideline Kevan. Jaime says that Kevan was offered the job, but refused. But Genna knows that Kevan would have taken it had the offer been right. And as for Lancel's decision to set aside his lordship, Genna has no clue what he's thinking. Jaime explains he intends to parley with the Blackfish tomorrow, but Genna thinks it will be futile.
They talk of Tywin, and Jaime asks if Genna loved her brother. She absolutely did. Their father, the much maligned Titus, gave her in marriage when she was only 7 years old to Emmon, who was 14 at the time. He wasn't even heir to the twins. Tywin, only 10 himself, objected. She was so grateful to and smitten by her big brother that she's loved him ever since. Jaime tries to indicate that he is like his father, but Genna explains that while Jaime may smile like Geryon, fight like Tig, and there is some Kevan in Jaime, it was always Tyrion that was Tywin's son, not you.
Ouch.
She shared that thought with Tywin once, and he wouldn't speak to her for half a year.
I don't find that surprising.
No, no. Only the length of time. I would have thought it'd be quite a bit longer.
Right.
She must have forced herself back into his ear 6 months later. It's yet another ruminative Feast for Crows chapter. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's no narrative drive here. I mean, finally he's arrived in Riverrun, but he hasn't done anything yet. He's just talking to people and learning things about his history and past, which
Right. Yeah, it feels like when a character is in the Riverlands, they just get stuck in a labyrinth of wandering around and talking to people.
That should be the real title of the series. It's sort of like, the marsh that is the Riverlands,
Right.
and getting stuck physically and in your head.
Right.
But Daven seems like a good egg.
Yeah, I like Daven.
Yeah, I did too. His father was Sir Stafford, whose army, if you remember, was decimated at Oxcross, where Stafford, died. Stafford was Joanna's brother, and Joanna was Jaime's mother.
Right.
So Devan and Jaime are therefore first cousins. Devan took the remnants from the Oxcross army and formed a new force at Lannisport. He's described as having lively eyes, a pug nose, and a gigantic beard.
Yeah.
And he's been appointed Warden of the West, which is the direct snub, if you remember, to Kevan. When
Right.
Kevan wouldn't play ball in King's Landing, the Warden of the West was given to Devan just to rub it into Kevan that he was getting nothing instead of what he'd been offered.
Which is why Daven is so confused as to why he was named Warden of the West instead of Kevan.
Right,
But,
right.
yeah.
Hey, and self-awareness too. I mean, he's like, Kevan would clearly be better at that job than me. I
Right.
can go bash people over the heads, but he's the man for that job.
Yeah, and as he said, the Freys wouldn't dare vex Kevan the way that they're vexing Daven.
Right.
Because Kevan is a full-grown, middle-aged adult who has some cachet about him, whereas Daven's a young man who's, I think he's a pretty capable and intelligent man. And in fact, Brynden Tully told Cat, and I think it was one of the first chapters in A Clash of Kings, possibly, that Stafford was a bit of a dullard, but that his son Daven was more formidable. So
That was said exactly, yes.
even the
right.
Blackfish thinks more highly of Daven than he did of Stafford. But you mentioned his big messy beard, and he tells Jaime that he won't cut his beard until he had vengeance for his father. And then he says that Robb Stark got to Karstark first. And for a minute I thought, why does Rickard Karstark require... What is required about Rickard Karstark for the vengeance for Stafford?
Can I interject? You know what? I read that and it never dawned on me that should have dawned on me. Because you're right. I would have assumed his vengeance would have been against Robb.
Right. Well, so I went back and looked, and the reason why is because it was Rickard Karstark that killed Stafford with a lance when Stafford was going for his horse in Oxcross.
Okay.
So, yeah, now,
that slipped by me.
You think
Good find.
the Lannisters and the Freys would be mad at Rickard Karstark because he killed Willem Lannister and Tion Frey, the sons of Kevan and Genna, respectively.
Yeah.
Which I was like, what does that have to do with Stafford, though? That's why. It was a little-known detail there, I guess, that slipped by us. But, you mentioned that they're first cousins, Daven and Jaime. And Daven refers to Genna and Kevan as aunt and uncle. And they're sort of kind of are. I mean, because they're all kind of Lannisters. But so you've got Titus, who is Tywin and Jenna's father, right? And then you've got Jason Lannister, who was Stafford and Joanna's father. And they're brothers. Stafford's sister, like I said, is
You're
Joanna.
Right. They're not first cousins, are they?
Technically, when you work it all the way down, which I was doing, Genna is the sister of Stafford's brother-in-law, Tywin, which, when you get it all the way down there, Daven and Genna are ultimately first cousins once removed. But I think because of the closeness of the family and the age difference, he refers to her as aunt and Kevan as uncle.
Yes. So in actual fact, they're not first cousins, they're second cousins, right? Isn't that what second cousins are? The children, because their parents,
the grandparents were siblings. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes you second cousins, exactly, yeah, I think.
So when I looked it up, it said first cousin once removed was the...
but I think that's when you're not the same generation.
Yes, right. No, you're right. It is because they're not the same generation. Yeah.
But they are the same generation, right? Jaime, if we're talking about Jaime and Devan, they are the same generation.
Yes.
They're second cousins.
Genna and Daven are not. So
Genna and Daven, right, are first cousins once removed.
Yeah, because Genna is first cousin to his father, Stafford.
Stafford, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So
okay.
But, we were just talking about how we like Daven. Seems like a smart, capable guy. I did find it interesting to compare Jaime in this chapter with Daven in this chapter, because when Daven comes in to the tent and meets Jaime's squires and Pia, you see some arrogance as he's kind of jesting with the squires and stuff and kind of talking about how he beat Lewis Piper's brother bloody and what's on Peck's chin there, is that dirt or hair. He's just kind of being kind of arrogant, telling them to fill his cup. He's got a thirst. And it reminded me of early Jaime. And seeing Jaime next to his cousin, who was very much like early Jaime, you realize how new Jaime is much more humble and respectful than that Jaime was. So...
Interestingly, Daven had heard that it was Catelyn's dog who took Jaime's hand, which that's the way the rumors go, I guess.
Yeah, right. It made me think of last chapter when we were talking about how Euron must have gotten news that the Red Wine fleet had completely left the Arbor. We were talking about how does news travel through the realm, and at what speed and what level of accuracy. So possibly Euron just got lucky that he got an accurate piece of news that the Red Wine fleet was now on the East Coast.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
I by the way, on that, I did wonder if by timing he was physically aware. He sailed around the south end of the continent not so very long ago.
That's true.
Presumably.
Yeah, maybe he passed
them. I wonder if maybe he passed them. It was well, that's a big fleet. Wow,
Right. That could be. Yeah, that very well could be.
Or alternatively, I mean, that did occur to me, but alternatively, if he didn't happen to pass them, if he happened to hug the coastline, he might have gone, well, I'm surprised not to see more ships out here,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I guess it's a timeline thing, if it was Euron that, he showed up the day after Balon died, which was a little while ago, but, how long ago did the ships leave? So, yeah. But anyway.
So we learned that Lancer went through with his plan that he told Jaime he was going to do last chapter to dissolve the marriage to Amory Frey. And I mean, generally speaking, if the Lord decides to do something, everyone would drop into line. But these are Freys.
Yeah.
They don't like this. This is a troubling development.
Yeah, we saw, like we mentioned in the summary, we saw what happened when Robb backed out of a Frey marriage.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know that they can pull off a second Red Wedding. I imagine at any Frey wedding, there will be armed guards on both sides of the aisle.
True enough.
But it's pretty clear why Kevan is fed up with everything,
Right. And certainly it's going to put a strain on the Lannister, because it's a Lannister. It's not just a Lannister loyalist or a Lannister bannerman. It's a Lannister who has perhaps even worse than Robb. He didn't just fall in love and marry someone else when he was betrothed to a Frey. He married her and then refused to consummate it and left her.
Right. That might be worse.
I think it might be worse too.
Now, of course, Robb was going to make queen, but
that's the big difference, right?
Yeah.
But still, it's there's an equivalence there. There's definitely going to put a strain on that relationship.
Good, very well, good. Now, we also got some solid information on Edmure and his wife Rosalind. Rosalind's pregnant, and that there seems to be an actual connection between the two members of this couple here. And also that Rosalind is hoping for a daughter, because if she has a son, it makes Edmure's life a little less necessary to their cause.
Yeah, but I'm not sure she's right about that.
I agree.
Because it's a sort of confused situation, because obviously their child would be half Frey and would be half Tully. You could certainly, if you were Walder Frey, you could see that child as being, if it was a boy in particular, being a very useful piece to have on the board to say, hey, here's who we want. But that might make Edmure's position more secure.
Right.
Edmure, you can continue to be the Lord of Riverrun, perhaps, because the next Lord of Riverrun will be a Frey.
Oh, yeah, Tully Frey. Right.
Yeah.
And in the short term, so Emmon might be the Lord of Riverrun in title, but what matters right now in the short term with this siege is what the people inside the castle believe. Mm-hmm. And clearly, they're not opening the gate for for Emmon Frey. No. So if you kill Edmure because he has a baby boy, I don't know that the men inside the castle are going to follow the newborn baby that has become the de facto new Lord of Riverrun. Right,
yeah. I mean, it's nice to have a daughter anyway, but I'm not sure her thinking is quite right on that.
Yeah.
It's a coin toss, which is better and which is worse, I think.
And if all that came to pass, Brynden Tully would probably become the new Lord of Riverrun to the people inside the castle,
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean, like, if they were to kill Edmure in front of them and say, don't worry, there's another one on the way, they'd be like, well, it's okay, we've got one here.
Right. Who we highly respect.
Right. So Emmon Frey is one of the leaders of the Frey contingent here at the siege. He's Stevron's eldest, and Stevron was in turn Lord Walder's eldest, but Stevron died at Ox Cross. So that means that Emmon, although a grandson, is actually first in line to the twins.
Right.
He's the one who's threatening Edmure every day with hanging him, which is both pointless and cruel. One can only imagine Edmure's terror the first couple of days, and presumably now his boredom, because he knows it's not going to happen. They all know it's not going to happen, and it actually benefits Brynden Tully. And hear my thinking on that. Inside, you imagine that there would be sort of like ebbs and flows of people's resolve inside the castle,
right?
But on a bad day, just point to what they're doing to the Lord of Riverrun right outside the gates.
Yeah.
And that is going to shore up support for the cause, I feel.
Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And plus the emptiness of the threat. The TV show, actually, I'll mention it now, actually. The TV show does a very good job of mentioning how stupid it is to make idle threats, a threat that you're not willing to follow up with.
Right.
Jaime says to Emmon Frey, he says, if I threatened to punch you in the face and didn't follow through with it, it wouldn't mean. And then he punches him in the face with his golden hand.
Punch. In spoilers.
But now you believe it.
Right. Yeah. Good demonstration. In spoilers, I'll talk about why Emmon might be doing what he's doing with Edmure.
Mm-hmm.
But also, speaking of these Freys, Daven says to Jaime, I wish that the Blackfish would come out and do a sortie from time to time to keep us on our toes, and maybe he could cull a few Freys, starting with Emmon and including Edwin and Walder Rivers. And then he said, but I actually kind of like Perwyn Frey, so we can let him live. So you mentioned who Emmon Frey was, the heir now to Walder after Stevron's death. Edwin Frey is Rymon's eldest, so he is now second in line to Lord Walder. Walder Rivers is the oldest bastard of Walder Frey from some unknown woman. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's known who it is. But he liked Perwyn. So Perwyn is the 15th son of Walder, and he was the one that accompanied Cat when she rode to Bitterbridge and then Storm's End to treat with Renly and Stannis, and she kind of liked him too. And remember, there were certain Freys that weren't present at the Red Wedding. He was one of the Freys. Yeah, so you have to imagine he's not quite cut from the same cloth as the rest of them.
I wonder if Walder Frey and or George Martin did that for us. Basically to indicate which Freys we're allowed to like. Right. He made them absent.
Yes, I really think that's very possible. Yes.
So Gawain Westerling gets a mention as one of Daven's whiners. He is Jane Westerling's father, who of course is Jane Stark, Robb's now widow.
Right.
She is one of the captives inside Riverrun, which is interesting. So that is where she's ended up.
Yeah.
Big deviation from the TV show, of course, because the Robb's wife died with him at the Red Wedding.
She had a whole different backstory, right? She was from Essos or something?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
So the Westerlings being inside does complicate the hang versus not hang Edmure, because Gawain is afraid if you hang Edmure, the Blackfish might retaliate and kill my family. So
yes, or you could just say they're clearly not going to do it. They haven't done it so far.
Well,
they're just idiots.
Yes, but of course, Emmon Frey really wants him to be hung. So
true.
But here's a quick update. I looked up where the various Westerlings were. So the oldest son of Sybil and Gawain is Reynold. He went to the Twins with Robb, and there's been no word of him since the Red Wedding. We don't know if he's dead or alive or what. Inside,
which is a very interesting question, by the way.
Yeah, right.
To know the answer to, because if he isn't dead or captured, then that kind of points to who was involved in the Red Wedding.
Yeah, right. What parties,
and also to where the Westerlings' loyalties always lay as well.
Yeah. So inside the castle is obviously Jane, like you mentioned, Elena, her sister, Rollum, her brother, and then her mother, Sybil. So, Daven says that, like I mentioned, Gawain is afraid they'll kill my family if we hang Edmure. And Jaime says the Blackfish won't kill kids. I agree with him. But Sybil is not a kid, so I don't know that she is very safe here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I do like the fact that Blackfish isn't wasting time by threatening to hang her every day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He could put her up on a wall with a noose around her neck, and
they can sort of like sort of brinksmanship to get closer and closer every day.
Yeah.
Until someone accidentally does it.
Speaking of the Blackfish's decision making, he also were told that he expelled all of the useless mouths from Riverrun before the siege. And it reminded me that when Cat returned after treating with the Baratheon brothers, she noticed that there were way too many useless mouths in the castle under Edmure's leadership. So the Blackfish is a little more callous when it comes to such things, I guess.
Daven has some intel about the goings on in the Riverland. He thinks that the religion of R'hllor is growing in the Riverlands, which is interesting. Presumably, that is something in the wake of Thoros of Myr, I would imagine.
Yeah, me too. The Thoros effect, I was thinking it would be called.
Yeah, and along those same lines, that Beric Dondarrion is becoming legendary. I mean, he kind of already is. He's such a constant sort of like rumble underneath this story of what the heck Beric Dondarrion's up to.
Now we don't even know what he's up to anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. We've lost all track of him.
Yeah. It's not a game changer that R'hllor the religion is growing in the small towns for Stannis' perspective, but it can't hurt.
No. So true enough. So Jaime sees River and he thinks that if the Blackfish won't yield, then he is going to have to break his oath to Cat and take up arms against the Tullys. makes him sound like a casual oathbreaker, which you like to think new Jaime is not. But in his head, he makes the point that he has a separate oath to protect the king and obey the king.
Right.
And of the two, that one has to take precedence. And so he's, and that's reasonable. I mean, if you take contrasting oaths, you've got to break one of them.
Yep. Yeah. And when he was a Kingsguard brother, he still is, but he had to decide between saving the realm and killing the king, saving the city, I should say, and killing the king. So he's been in this type of conflicting vow situation before, but he's put a lot of thought into not breaking this vow. And I think when he made the vow, he had absolutely no intention of keeping the vow. I think he agreed just to escape the dungeon. But I put that all on being heavily influenced by his time with Brienne.
Yeah,
and all that's losing his hand, all the humility that has instilled. But Genna, Jaime says, I want to treat with the Blackfish. I plan to offer him good terms. And Genna says, doesn't matter. Basically, our association with the Freys and your reputation as the Kingslayer, the Blackfish isn't going to take any offer that you make him seriously. We don't have enough reputation.
Right.
And that's a pretty accurate assessment, I think. I mean, the Red Wedding tainted the association with the Freys throughout the realm.
Right. And Jaime knows that his word counts for nothing. It would have to be rock solid. I mean, you'd have to see the helicopter coming in.
Right.
Before you make a deal.
And I was thinking about in this chapter, why are we besieging Riverrun in the first place? And why are the Tullys still holding out? So,
okay, can I suggest what I think?
Yes, go right ahead.
Well, Riverrun is the capital of the Riverlands, and it is the seat of House Tully. They've been decimated by what went on at the Red Wedding. They are holding out against the Freys because the Freys are coming to claim the Riverlands. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot of it. But, as Jaime is riding up to the castle, he sees the Stark flag still flying above the Tully flag, that they still support Robb, but Robb's dead. So they're still supporting the Stark king, but who is the Stark king that they're still supporting, since they believe that all of the Starks basically are dead? So then the question is, why not bend the knee and be invited back into the king's peace? Now, of course, as I said, Robb was dead, killed in cold blood at the Red Wedding. The Lannisters were directly involved. Cat murdered at the Red Wedding. Edmure hostage. All that horrible injustice, but there's nobody left to alternatively support. The Lannisters sit the Iron Throne. They could support Stannis, but he's stuck in the north, so you're absolutely surrounded by Lannister loyalists. So it's just it's a tough spot for them to be in.
I agree, but the very next point that I'm going to make will actually just feed their rationale, I think.
Right.
Because Jaime is very concerned by the lack of major Riverlands houses supporting the siege.
That's the one thing.
They've been told to come and join and help the Freys take Riverrun, and they've found convenient reasons to. Well, there is the harvest to bring in. Winter is coming and all. I mean, I didn't mean it in that way. So that's why you might keep fighting, because you know that the rest of the Riverlands, if given the freedom of choice, will choose you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And, Jaime's fear is he sees there's not many river lords present, and he feels like, it just heartens the others not committed to King Tommen, which in this closest one would be right here at Riverrun. So there's one other primary river lord who is still holding out, and that is Titus Blackwood. Because Brynden Tully technically isn't a river lord. Edmure is, but but still,
until Edmure gets
for all intents and purposes, we'll call him the Lord of Riverrun right now. But the Blackwoods are being besieged by the Brackens, of course.
When you said there was one other major lord, I was like, it's got to be a Bracken or a Blackwood.
Right.
One of them's gone with the Lannisters, therefore.
Yes. Now, the Mallister sigil was also not seen in the Riverlands camp. But we know that Seaguard was besieged by Black Walder, and that Patrick Mallister, the son of Jason Mallister, was at the Red Wedding. But back in the Purple Wedding chapter, this little detail probably got slightly overshadowed by the gruesome death of Joffrey Baratheon. The news that Mallister surrendered Seaguard happened in that. We got that news in that chapter. So
right.
He's not there, but his castle has been surrendered.
Right. But if he surrendered and was taken, the Freys could march all of those people to help with the siege and fly the Mallister flag.
Yeah.
It's not happening. I skipped over it in the summary, but as you mentioned, that Peck and Pia's intimacy seems to be going well. He's putting hairs on his chin or dirt, one or the other.
And Jaime falls asleep often listening to them in their intimacy at night. And, hopefully she's participating out of choice and not because she's accustomed to giving into a man's desires.
Fingers crossed.
That made me wonder if Jaime had the consent talk with Pia like he did with Peck. He told Peck,
interesting.
Only if she will have you. I wonder if he talked to Pia only if
you want to.
Right.
Right.
So the fact that they're doing so in Jaime's presence maybe implies equally consensual, I hope. I don't.
Possibly.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. I'm British. We need to move on.
Yeah.
So Emmon Frey is Genna Lannister's husband. He's the new Lord of Riverrun. Their son was Cleos, who I can never think of Cleos without thinking of him ploughing a furrow between Riverrun and King's Landing with his head.
Right.
Cleos was one-time companion of Jaime and Brienne until he died on that journey.
And it was very kind of Jaime to tell the lie about Cleos' death and burial. He said, he died chasing off the outlaws, and I buried him next to a creek stream, and someday I will go back and get his bones and take them back to Casterly Rock. I'm not sure if he would have done that before he lost his hand.
No. I know that Cersei wouldn't.
Right. And if Cersei wouldn't, Jaime probably wouldn't. Yeah.
Right. True enough.
Before the hand loss, they were very much in sync.
Yeah. Genna thinks that they should have been given Darry instead of Riverrun. And that's an interesting thought. Obviously, Riverrun is a better prize than Darry.
Right.
It is a bigger, more important castle. But then it's also going to be way more disputed.
Yep.
Like we've just said, pretty much every Riverlands house is going to be opposed to your presence there.
Yeah.
But Darry doesn't feel like it would be a slam dunk either. I mean, the reason that Lancel was married to Amory Frey was because she was a half Darry. There's no Darry blood here, is there, between Emmon and Genna?
Only in the fact that Cleos's wife was Jane Darry, who is Emery's aunt, the sister of Mariah Darry. Mariah, who we met in the last Jaime chapter, the mother of Amy.
Yeah.
So she's one generation older than Amy. But if you follow primogeniture, Amy takes precedent, right? She is the daughter of the older daughter.
But does she have a child? Did Cleos have any children?
Yes.
Oh. Well, then that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that would have been a much easier retirement for Genna and Emmon.
Yes.
They could have gone there now.
Right.
You know?
Yes. But much easier. And Genna tells Jaime, I don't blame Kevan for choosing the safer of the two seats for his son.
Right.
So Genna goes on to talk about how Cersei's making a mess of things with her weak, smallest council and making bad decisions. And she kind of mocks pretty much every member of the small council. And then she says kind of one toss away line that is subtly important. She says, Cersei has the Bravasi calling in loans across the realm.
No.
And how I'm interpreting that is that, you remember, Cersei is refusing to pay the Iron Bank their money that the crown owes them. So the way they're getting their money back is calling in loans from the rest of the realm.
Okay.
And we had discussed, it seems like a bad idea to blow off the Iron Bank, they probably have ways of dealing with such situations, and maybe this is one of their ways. We're going to call in loans all across your realm until they start coming to you saying, "Hey,
right,
this is your fault. Fix it."
Right. The only thing about that is, I mean, just like trying to understand economics. I mean, if those people owed that money back, then they owed that money back, and it was due at a certain point.
Yeah, unless
Can
they're
the
wanting
bank
it all.
foreshorten that? You know.
Yeah. Possibly they're saying we want full payment now. When
Right.
they were making monthly payments or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's very true. I mean, that puts a huge squeeze on the entire realm. If suddenly all of your loans, I mean, you got to imagine that a lot of these lords built their castles on, on loans from the banks.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Genna particularly doesn't like the fact that Cersei's allowed the Faith to rearm, and she has specific reasons for that.
Yeah, well, she tells Jaime that even Aegon the Conqueror treaded lightly with the Faith when they were so armed, and that they caused major problems when they rose up against Aegon's sons Aenys and Maegor, which we've talked about in many a background chapter. Ultimately, they're a very powerful force with the strong backing of pious lords and knights and small folk when they're an armed unit, which is pretty much what Genna tells Jaime in this chapter.
Yeah. Genna thinks that something must have been amiss about the offer that Kevan was made in King's Landing for him not to take the hand of the king. It kind of hints that maybe she knows what's going on between Jaime and Cersei.
I wondered that too.
I also wondered if it was just a fishing expedition. If she was just like, she's heard the rumors, who hasn't?
Right.
The birds flew.
Yeah. And
she's trying to get it out of Jaime, whether it's true or not.
She lived her whole life in Casterly Rock, so she had to have heard at least young age rumblings. Now, the twins left Casterly Rock long ago, so, maybe she's not sure whether that kind of stuff is still happening, but certainly she's heard the rumors that Stannis put out there,
Right. Yeah.
So,
although I'm not sure he would have sent a bird to Casterly Rock to say it, Hey, I got some real interesting news for you guys. So I had a question for you. Just because Tywin and Joanna get a mention in this chapter, how much do you think that Tywin and Joanna being first cousins plays into Jaime and Cersei's willingness to reject the prohibitions against their union? How big of a step is it from cousins to straight up sibling incest?
To twin incest.
Twin, if you may think that's any worse. I mean,
not necessarily, but maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how. There's so many cousins marrying each other in this story.
Yeah, true. And not many siblings apart from in the Targaryen world.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if it plays a role. It's never been mentioned. It's never come up, but I can certainly see your point.
Well, my greater point, the point that I'm sort of heading towards, is whether or not Tywin was smart, and Tywin knew the lay of the land, and he didn't try as hard as he could have done to keep these two apart.
Right.
He tried, but he didn't try. I think if he tried as hard as he could have done, they would have been apart.
Yeah.
And they weren't, and they kept doing this, and now there are 3 children from their union.
Yeah.
Did Tywin actually kind of approve? That's what I'm getting at. Is Tywin the kind of person who loves the Lannister bloodline so much that he marries a first cousin, and then when his children want to get it on, he's like, you know what? That would be pretty Lannister, wouldn't it?
We are almost Targaryen. We're just as good as Targaryens.
And that. Yes, exactly that.
No, you're right. I mean, all Tywin's decisions were based around the family, what was best for the family and protecting the family's image and all of that. So I'm not sure entirely. I can't say for certain that he would have approved of it, but I could certainly see an argument that he could have possibly have. We'll have to discuss this. Our Discord community members will have to weigh in on their thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a really good picture of life in Tywin's world, and that, as Genna says, it was hard for especially the males in the family to find their own light in his wide, long, dark shadow. And she basically goes through all of her male family members. Tyget, the one they call Tig.
Tell me the relationship.
Tyget is the third youngest brother. It goes Tywin, Kevan, Genna, Tyget, Jerian, I think, in that order.
Okay. Thanks. So these are the youngest brothers,
yes.
that we're talking about, yeah.
Yes. Tyget, basically, the way Genna described him to me was kind of a poor man's Tywin. He tried to do the things, but Tywin was always better at him than him at everything, and ultimately it drove him to more and more dangerous and risky behavior, and eventually he died of a pox. His son is Tyrek Lannister, the one that went missing in the riot.
Oh, yeah.
Jerian, the youngest, was the typical youngest, the class clown. He tried to do the opposite. He tried to find light.
Are you listening, Rob McGregor?
He tried to find his light by running in the opposite direction of Tywin, being the fun, jokey guy. And then he tried to make his mark by sailing to Old Valyria and, make a name for himself that way by being the first person to do that. And of course, he's never been seen since. He has a daughter, Joy Hill, that she's going to come up in spoilers. So,
good to know.
But even their father, Titus, was not immune, because Genna says that, when he announced her betrothal to Emmon at a feast, Tywin, in front of everyone, stood up and loudly denounced the union.
That part of the story, something doesn't quite gel in my mind with that part of the story, because Tywin's love of his family, which is very, very strong, and his belief in the sanctity of the family and how important the family was and how above reproach the Lannisters were, didn't even reach back as far as his father.
Oh, yeah. I think that is part of the reason why, because he was embarrassed by his father's weakness.
Yeah.
I think that's why he was so strong.
I kind of get it with the Starks, because Robb had Ned to look up to, and Ned was everything you'd want to be in the Lord of Winterfell,
Yeah.
But here it's like, man, is that what being a Lannister's about? It's not all it's cracked up to be, So, but you're right. Maybe it's just a reaction to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I think overcorrection.
Yeah. Very good. And then the last line of all of the chapter, as you've always mentioned, the last lines are important, that Genna says it was Tyrion that was Tywin's son, which is kind of heartbreaking, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be heartbreaking to Jaime to hear that I'm not his son. I'm basically these two losers,
fighting for some daylight.
Right. Yeah, look at it. But Tyrion was everything that Tywin was, and that Tyrion killed him. Tyrion killed his father.
Right.
And so that's just, it's sort of a tragedy particularly for Jaime to hear it.
She certainly didn't mean it literally, because in fact, some fans think that Tyrion is actually King Aerys' son. It's certainly more of the calculating, strategic mind.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's one of the reasons that Tywin disliked Tyrion so much. He saw how much alike they were, but then Tyrion was Tyrion. He was stunted and he frequented brothels, and he thought of him as an embarrassment on the family. And the juxtaposition of, wow, I see a lot of myself in that guy, and wow, I really don't like him. Just caused him serious issues.
Okay, it's time for some spoilers. If you join us at the higher tiers of the Buy Me a Coffee sustainers, you can listen to what Mackelly, pretty much just Mackelly, has to say at this point. All right, thank you, Mackelly. Excellent spoilerage. Why don't you give us some background?
Okay. Well, so this is the third time that Jaime has Sir Kennos of Case blow the horn of Herrick when they arrive at a castle. Previously at Derry, and before that at Harrenhal. They did the same thing. And so what's the deal with this named horn that seems to just be randomly blown whenever they arrive at a castle? So the description is that it's a black twisted horn banded in gold. And the reason that Jaime always has Sir Kennos blow it is because it's named after Herrick Kenning, the founder of the Westerland House, Kenning of Case, and the current head of House Kenning is Lord Terence, to whom Sir Kennos is a sworn man. So basically, Lord Terence has loaned this horn to his sworn man, Sir Kennos. So Sir Kennos...
Did Tywin want a horn as well as a Valyrian steel sword? I want a horn, like those cases of God.
The horn originally belonged to Herrick Kenning of the Ironborn House Kenning on Harlaw. And as you probably imagine, there have been plenty of wars between the Ironborn's Driftwood kings and the kings of the Rock. Obviously, we're talking pre-Aegon the Conqueror here. And Herrick participated in such a war. So the town of Case, despite being in the Westerlands, was actually once occupied by the Ironborn. And Herrick, despite being an Ironborn, used his horn as a signal to the whores of Case to open a postern gate, allowing Herrick and his men into the town, and they captured the town for House Lannister. And what I can tell you about House Kenning of Case is that their sigil is orange sunbursts on black and black sunbursts on orange quartered.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. I'd never heard of them.
Yeah.
It's kind of they're obscure.
Well, I just kept noticing as they went from castle to castle, they kept
blowing that horn.
And it had a name, and I was like, why does this random horn have a name? So there you go. That's why.
I think he likes to sort of scatter horns to sort of like hide which one really matters.
Maybe, yeah.
Got to have a bunch of horns, otherwise
Right.
they'll all know which one it is. Comparison with the television show. So the television show and book actually come back together again briefly here, but way down the line. I mean, so much water has gone under the Riverrun bridge. By the time that this happens in the TV show, I mean, like, a lot has changed. But Jaime arrives at Riverrun with Bronn. I mean, there you go, as an example.
Basically, Bronn becomes ill in pain, right?
He does, exactly, yeah. They find the Freys in absolute disarray, like no defensive structure or anything like that. They're just milling around. The place is a pigsty. And, of course, they are threatening to kill Edmure. All of Devon's intel is gathered by Jaime by just looking around for 30 seconds. As I mentioned, he punches Emmon Frey across the mouth with his golden hand. He demands proper defensive positions to be established, which I think is a throwback to what was said in the book in an earlier Jaime chapter when he demanded defensive positions. He has a reasonable point here. He said, 8,000 men just walked into your siege unmolested. So
that's a problem.
That could be a problem, yeah. And he also demands that Edmure be bathed and fed. So he wants Edmure to look a little bit better.
Yeah.
Pedantry, I didn't find any pedantry in this one. It's all fun and games.
Yeah, me either.
News and notes. We don't have much news and notes either, but we've got a sustainer call coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll send out an announcement to the sustainers with the date and time, and we'll try to be there.
That's we'll try both to be there.
Yeah, you were there. You were there breathlessly, but at least there.
We always have fun.
Yeah, we do definitely have fun. Yeah. Dip your toe in the water, join, and come to one of the things and see if it's worth your time.
That's right.
Let's conclude this one. It's not clear that Jaime can keep his vows. I mean, they do conflict. He could try and. He's going to parley with the Blackfish and maybe try and come up with something. But as we've said several times in this chapter, how does the Blackfish believe the Freys or Jaime Lannister? If you're writing a list of least trustworthy people in Westeros, you'd probably start with those two.
Right. At least who have the worst reputation.
Exactly. Somewhat unfairly in one of their cases.
Yes.
But yes.
One is fully deserved. The other
yeah.
is mostly because he refuses to say what really happened. I think we've discussed that plenty of times. And because of all that, let's face it, the Blackfish is not going to swim away from Riverrun anytime soon here.
Not voluntarily.
No.
No.
And it also doesn't seem, I don't know, Jaime's here now. I mean, that would be really breaking his vow to Cat if he decides to kill Edmure. After all this, all this fake, fake hanging Edmure, he comes in and actually does kill Edmure. That would really be going from 0 to 100.
when Hoster died, I'm remembering something from the TV show, and I want to check if it was in the book too. When Hoster died, did they send his body down the river, and they fired arrows at it?
Edmure tried.
Flaming arrows.
Yes, he
Edmure
kept
tried.
Missing. Yeah.
And Brynden took over and did it. Yeah.
Yes. Right before it got out of reach. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that there, right there, might encapsulate what Brynden thinks of Edmure, I think.
Yeah,
so,
maybe. Yeah.
Probably is like, actually do it.
I could do it from here.
See if I can. Yeah, that's it. Oh no, I don't want him to be hung.
Right. Oh goodness.
Jenna's a character.
She is.
I like Genna.
Yeah, she's got quite the personality.
Yeah, and therefore Emmon Frey is completely out of his depth. Despite marrying a 7-year-old, he is by far the lesser of the two.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we didn't really get into the fact that she was married off at 7, which is just absurdly young, appallingly young.
To someone who was not even the heir to the twins.
Yes, right.
That is Titus, not Tywin.
Right, the only Lannister daughter.
Right. Who did Tywin marry his daughter to? The king.
The king, right.
Yeah.
And was going
Nobody
to marry
else.
her to the
previous
crown
king,
prince before.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. And Jaime is not Tywin's son. He is in the literal sense.
Right,
But
in
the metaphorical sense, that moniker belongs to Tyrion and Tyrion only.
Much to probably both Tyrion and Tywin's chagrin.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them really want to be considered the other one.
And possibly Jaime's too. He might like. He tried to claim it here.
Yes.
I'm Tyrion's.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Well, next time we have Arya, or as we will refer to her in the chapter, Cat of the Canals.
That's right.
Another new name for Arya, as if she needed that.
She's collecting them, that's for sure.
Yeah. There's 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We'll read any reviews out. You can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal and join us at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. Some of the tiers get you the sustainer calls, and the higher tiers get you the spoilers. And they're really interesting, the spoilers. Or if you want, you can just make a donation directly to our cause at our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, you can send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode show notes. In fact, we just got a fantastic text right before I came down here. I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you to go read it. You should go read it.
I'll go read it.
Yeah, it's really good, so thank you for that. Remember, though, we can't reply as much as we'd like to. But if you're interested in keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal, or on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, which I highly recommend you go join us there, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.